With the first two sides complete, it's now time to add the shorter 33.8cm side panels. You will need 4 to start with. Start by standing the first two side panels up facing outwards and upside down. Then place one short length of wood standing up facing outwards on one side and one length lying down as a guide on the other side, making sure it's all nice and tight against each other. Now you can screw in the 4 screws at the top and bottom of each side into the leg behind. You will need to have 4 screws in each panel. Here, 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 and here, until all the screws are in place and you have a third side complete. For the fourth side, you will need to lie the panel down, as you won't be able to screw it as you did before. With it lying down, place the last 4 smaller side panels in place. Wood is never always perfectly straight, so you may need to just push the sides in a bit to get a nice fit. It should look like this before you start screwing it together. Start by screwing a screw in the top corner and the bottom corner to hold each of the forwards in place, before filling in all the other screws. You will then have all 4 sides complete. For this planter, you'll need an inner shelf that you can have at any height you wish, a shallower planter for bedding plants and a deeper one for ornamental trees and bushes. Having an inner shelf also saves on compost usage and how heavy the planter will be. Firstly, you'll need to add 2 inner side battens. So place your wood on its side and using a tape measure, put the first batten in place where you want it and allow for the thickness of the batten that will sit on top of that. You will need to decide how deep you want it to be. I chose mine to be about 28cm deep, so my battens start from around about 30cm deep. From wherever it's easiest to screw it, use 2 screws to hold the batten in place. Measure the second side batten and screw it down. You will now need to drill pilot holes in all the ends of each support batten, 8 holes in total. A reason for the pilot hole is to stop the wood from splitting, and even with a pilot hole, a screw close to the edge can split it, so I like to screw away from the edge. My battens are 2.2cm deep, so I chose to drill my pilot holes around about 2cm from the edge, and in at an angle so that they secure nicely into the side battens. Now place the 4 battens in place, and then start screwing them in place. Your base is then fully built. It's now time to start adding the lining. The lining I used is called a damp-proof membrane, which you can get from most builders merchants. This is very heavy duty and will hold the compost firmly in place. If you do go with a thinner fabric, then I would suggest you add a couple more battens to fill in any gaps. To find out what lining you'll need to measure down both sides and the width of the bottom. Add about an extra 2 cm to allow for the liner to be turned over to hide any raw edges. Now using either scissors or your utility knife, cut the material to size you worked out. When attaching the lining, as I mentioned before, roll over the edge just a bit before stapling it, as this will give it extra strength. Fitting the lining can be very fiddly, but just take your time, stapling a bit at a time as you go, until the lining is fully fitted. Now it's time to start the top of your planter. Firstly, take a 55cm top length, Now, using the 45-degree angle on your saw, draw a line from the very corner. And then cut this first corner. Now measure 55 centimeters from the corner you just cut and draw an opposing 45 inward angle at that point. And now cut that edge, remembering to sand off any rough edges afterwards. Once each piece of the top is complete, they can be placed in position. Adjust the top pieces so that they're all even with the base, and this should leave a little bit of an overlap on the inside to cover any of the lining edges. Each top piece just needs 3 screws. 2 that will go into the front legs and 1 into the panel behind. Then add the rest of the screws. All the screws are then in place and your planter is complete. All you have to do now is plant it with whatever takes your fancy.